Okay, we're back. Expandable. Today I want to talk about where we're at. A section of the economy is moving, and it's a lot of boomers, a lot of older age folks that have started, maybe bought, run a business for the last 20, 30, 40 years. Mm-hmm. And they've all kinds of different businesses, a lot of local small businesses. And now they're getting later on in their years and they're looking to sell.
Yeah, they want to retire.
Right. And all of a sudden they pop their head out of their business and they're like, wow, there's everyone else is selling too. So it's kind of a muddy with landscape.
An impending recession.
Correct. The price of everything's gone up. So it's gotten really muddy. So I thought we could talk about, what are some things, if you are one of those people, that you could do to prep your business for sale, or how to think about that on a timeline. I mean, if you're just kind of in shambles and you're not really sure what to do, you probably need to talk to a business broker, and other people. But just kind of hitting some high level points here, I think these could add value to people across the board.
Yeah, I mean, the first thing that comes to my mind is accurate record keeping.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, being exactly up to date. If you're selling your company, it's June, and you give them financials and your tax returns. Okay, well, those are already 6 months old, and especially in this current economy with inflation, So come June, July, what have you done the first 6 months of this year? So you need to have absolute up to date record keeping. Immediately when you go to sell your business and somebody is interested in inquiring, you need to go ahead and have your full financial package immediately ready and up to date to the last end of month prior.
Sure.
Because, I mean, to me, that's a red flag when you go into a business and, it's July 20th and, they can give you numbers through March.
Yeah.
Okay, it's July 20th. I want numbers through the end of June.
I think a lot of times why that happens is because the owner doesn't have full visibility into their financials. They don't know their numbers.
Well, to sell their business, they better.
Right. So that's probably another thing to mention, like know your numbers.
So I think that's first and foremost. And then also small business, that owner operator, they're intimately involved. So they've been paying themselves W-2 salaries. Is that enough for them to live on? Or are they taking extra out to show, what they've taken out, what they take out of that number, being transparent on that. And then the other thing is, how many hours a week are they working?
Mm-hmm. Themselves.
Yes.
In the business.
Yes.
Right.
Because if they're working 60 hours a week, and 80 hours a week.
Yeah. If the business relies on you, then do you have a business to sell?
Yes.
Probably not.
So right then and there, so ultimately by the time, if you've been running that business 20 years and you're looking to retire, the most valuable is the least amount of input from the owner. If you're just going in and checking on everything and looking at record keeper, that business is going to be way more valuable than if you're there 80 hours a week.
For sure.
So that too, being able to expand that, because, during that transition, a lot of times that new operator is going to be there and the old operator is going to help them transition through it. Mm-hmm. And, you've got disclosures, you're talking to each other. So, I mean, it'll be apparent very quickly if you lie to them of how much effort you have to put in each week. So go ahead and be 100% upfront with that. And then the third thing that really comes to mind is, everything's probably in your head. You're just going through motions daily. You know how to handle tasks. Now you need to put those tasks down in procedures.
Yep. Document.
If it's as simple as if you're the line cook in your own restaurant and you're doing everything, and you can naturally produce that sandwich exactly the same day in and day out.
Yeah.
That other person's not. You need to have exact procedures.
Right. Yeah. To me, that's a systems thing. It's an efficiency thing. And this hopefully is something you've been working on for some time, but I think a lot of small business owners are still that line cook, right? Because that sandwich is why people show up and they make it the best.
I mean, could you imagine? And I always go through Biz Buy Sell and look through this, but if you're looking at businesses and you've got three in mind, all three are say generate $50,000-$100,000 a month in gross revenue, but this one actually gave you a procedure manual that they spent time and put together. That's going to give way more comfort to that buyer.
Sure. Another one that came to mind for me was having a great team. So this is, if you're in the final hour here, this is going to be more difficult. But if you have a couple years, 3 years or so, and your off ramp is a little bit longer, hiring great A players, even if it means paying them a little bit more, because what they're going to do for your business is what you can't do. They're going to teach you and show you the way for, if you're hiring people that have experience that are coming from those roles, other places, and looking for a better opportunity.
Correct. Yes. And when you do have roadmap, you say, okay, I'm looking to sell out over the next few years. Being able to remove yourself from the business, that's going to increase the value. And during that time, you can use to button up procedurally. Did it work? Now you brought in new people.
Yep.
Okay.
Hold them accountable to the system.
Did your procedures work? Did it make it more efficient? And then you can tailor as you go.
That's right.
But to me, that business is way more value if you have no input and it nets you $50,000 a year. Well, to me, okay, at least $500,000 business. Now, but if it nets you $50,000 a year and you're working 40 hours a year, a week in it,
and what's the point?
The business is worthless.
Right. Yeah. Agreed. And from what I can see, I think investors are looking for great teams. That's one of the big things. They're looking for cash flow, solid financials that are, take the risk off of them when they're going to invest in this business. And drilling into the team a little bit, it makes sense that if you're looking to buy a company, you want to have as many as little unknowns as possible. You want to buy the business, walk into it, and have it not implode on you. And I think that gets to the heart of individuals who are on the team who are good at what they do. They understand fully what they do, the impact it has on the business, and they understand the business. So that if, let's say, a buyer's coming maybe from outside of the industry, they can walk in with more confidence knowing that these three people that are the key people are not going to leave.
That opens yourself up to the more limitless potential buyers out there too.
Sure. That's right. Yeah. Instead of just people who are looking to acquire an additional, sandwich shop, it may not even have to be in the restaurant industry. But those three key people, if they're not going to leave, that's great. Day one or week one, but the buyer, the now new owner, can go to those people and learn how the business works more intricately. And those employees are probably going to stay because they see that they have value. They're teaching the new owner, how things work. And the new owner can then, shower them with praises. He can give back to them. And so it's a very critical that your team loves what they do, that they're there. They show up, not half engaged, so I think the team component is
oh yeah.
good.
If you're afraid to introduce new buyer to your employees,
it's not going to be good.
No, that will not be. So
yeah, you don't want everything you've worked so hard for to unravel in the last minute.
No, you need to have comfort that if that potential buyer comes in and is, coming after hours to speak to the employees, that you've got nothing to fear.
Yeah. One other thing that came to mind was sort of what I'll call a growth pipeline, like projection of growth. So that can practically play out in a sales process and a sales pipeline. So you could pull up a CRM and look at the different stages of how buyers are coming in. If you had it in your marketing side, that'd be even better because it can show that your marketing is working. Yeah. But once they enter into that, depending on what you're selling widgets, a little different than selling professional services specifically. But, if you can kind of give some visibility into what percentage of those sales are going to close over the next 30, 60, 90, 180 days, that shows the projection of sales and cash flow on the front end.
That along with how many of your customers are repeat buyers makes a big difference.
That's right.
Because the majority of them are repeat buyers, then you've got
what's your customer base look like? And what's the retention look like? What's your churn rate look like? Churn is a huge metric to be able to, if you can get your churn rate really low, if not, almost non-existent, there's a lot that goes into doing that well. But if you can do that, that's something to hold up high whenever you're talking to a buyer, to say, you may have talked to some other businesses that look like ours, but They're not like ours because all our customers have stuck with us. And here's why. The one other thing I want to mention too, which kind of just goes to the macro, is it's sort of like if you're going to start a business. We've talked about this before. Market research, asking buyers what they think. It's the same thing. It's just a different buyer. Now you're trying to sell your business to a investor and or purchaser.
Yeah.
So go out and talk to some that you think would be prospective buyers. Ask them what they see. What is it they're looking for in a business like yours? What's going through their mind. And that should help you. I mean, you can do that too. I think with business brokers, that will be the conduit conversation. But I think going out and doing a little bit of market research.
And there's a big difference between a business broker and like a realtor. If you've got property sales, so
sure.
Do your research.
But if you're a sandwich shop, for example, because they're a little bit more ubiquitous than another business, right? There's a lot of other sandwich shops in your area potentially. So doing a little bit of research to see what other sandwich shops are for sale right now, and what other sandwich shops are not for sale but are doing maybe as well as you are, if not better. What do they look like? Are they the franchise model that's down the street, or are they the mom and pop that's killing it?
Is it the same people that are going to each one?
Right.
Yeah, there's a lot.
Yeah.
Spend time, go to each of them.
But to have that time to do that, you have to be out of your business to some extent. You can't be in there making sandwiches. Yeah. So, all this is sort of plays together, and to some extent.
Yeah. You almost have to, in some respect, some of the small business, they almost have to take a pay decrease in order to get the most out of it for the sale.
For sure. Yeah, that's actually a good way to look at it. I think if you know whatever age, let's say you're 64, just to use a Medicare, or I guess a Medicare 65, you're 63, you have 2 years to go. Okay, we'll take a pay cut and maybe reduce your household expenses for 2 years, because in light of the sale, start getting everything in place, doing your due diligence, looking at the market, and saying in 2 years, I want to sell. So that's the goal. Okay, I need to stop making sandwiches. So what does that look like? How do I do that? Let's map this out. And maybe for the first time you thought strategically about your business, but what better time to start than the time that you want to sell?
It's always best to sell a business when there's continued runway. If you are approaching that time, you're 62, but you don't want to retire in 3 years, but the economy's going gangbusters. That is the time to sell.
Yes. Yeah. You may not want to sell, but
that is the time.
Yeah. Right now, currently, I don't know if that's the landscape. It depends on the industry. But yeah, for sure.